Hi, my name is Jacob and you're watching the presentation of Team Kestrel about the 30-hour challenge we completed on the 25th of October 2014. In this part of the video, I will be talking about one of the first activities we went through at Stern Lodge, called Wellbeing Profile. During this activity, we found out which Wellbeing Profile applies to each one of us based on our traits and behaviors.
Belbin profiles were developed by Meredith Belbin in 1891, and they are used to identify people's behavioral strengths and weaknesses in the workplace. Prior to this research, organizations tended to believe that a team of best and most intelligent people will perform best, what is also known as Apollo syndrome. However, Belbin proved that every team needs a mix of people with different roles in order to succeed. Originally, Belbin profiles consist of 8 roles divided into 2 categories. The first category is the squares and includes innovator, resource investigator, chair, and shaper. These roles apply to outward-looking people whose orientation is to the outside world. On the other hand, the circles represent inward-looking characters whose orientation is to the group, and they are evaluator, team worker, organizer, and finisher. Although being put together randomly, in our Kestrel's team, we were lucky enough to have all Belbin profiles covered by at least one individual as either their primary or secondary role. This fact contributed to the overall well-being of the team, because when we were undertaking tasks, all team members had their place in the team and helped the team their specific way. As I said before, we all had a primary and secondary role, but these roles can change over time or they can change based on different situations. As I found out, my primary role was evaluator. This role applied to me because I tried to keep an eye on our progress and oversee anything that could lead us to making mistakes. However, sometimes this may lead me to being perceived as overly critical towards ideas of others. My secondary role was shaper, and it showed up on several occasions. I enjoyed leading the team, and I often wanted to be the first to try specific tasks. However, sometimes I found myself being impatient when we as a team were indecisive.
Throughout the presentation, you will meet all of our team members and understand which profile they represented during the 30-hour challenge. They will also self-reflect on how and when their profile applied to them the most.
Lucy, my Belbin profile firstly depicted me as being a finisher and secondly an innovator. Previously, I hadn't seen myself as a finisher and had only seen my innovator attributes. However, throughout the 30-hour challenge, I saw myself grow into the role of being a finisher by seeing an end goal, recognising time pressures, and pushing the team towards the end of a task. The model for action-centred learning was developed by John Adair. And this theory gives the basis of 3 types of leadership that take place when working in a team. The model has also been referred to as functional leadership. As you can see, it consists of task, team and individual that at times can all overlap. Stage 1 set of challenges, we began to see different aspects of this model come into play. During the Towers of Hanoi, leaders within the group began to action the challenge through the task element of the model. Myself, Jacob and Katie focused on the strategy of the task, as it wasn't a challenge where we needed support from our team. The idea suggests that the individual aspects of leadership is about utilising an individual's strengths, giving each person in the team status, recognition and responsibility. Jacob was the only male in our team and is a strong individual. It didn't take us long to begin capitalising on this asset. He put himself forward for more physically straining tasks, and we began to call upon this in the team, directing his skill set. The way in which the individual aspects came into action during the challenges was the bridge jump. Here, we all thought of ourselves as the individual as opposed to utilising an individual within the team. We were concerned with our own challenges, our own strengths and weaknesses. With us all focusing on ourselves, we lost the sense of contributing within a team or towards a task. We lost our functional leadership style. The third and final aspect is team leadership. This was actually on our very first challenge, Giant's Finger, where the team harmonised together to support action and complete the task as a whole. Perhaps the task where this was most noticeable was the tunnels. This challenge united the Kestrels in both fear of the challenge and support of the team. What started out to be our biggest challenge turned out to be our greatest success. Furthermore, throughout this task as a team, we began to tap into the 7 functions of effective leadership as mentioned by Adair. We defined the tasks, its constraints and its objectives. We planned for success by allocating positions and a support system. We briefed the team, controlled the standards for implementing a plan, and we evaluated throughout and post the challenge. Moreover, we motivated, organised and set an example for both ourselves and other members of the team. The exact leader in this task may not have been exactly clear because we all acted upon the task, team and individual settings of leadership.
Hi, I'm Laura, and the Bowden Profiles theory concluded that throughout the 30-hour challenge I was most likely to be a chair and team worker, which on reflection I do feel was fitting. I felt this came into play as being a team worker I took into account others' emotions and ideas, how I became very indecisive at the moments of crisis, yet still did the activities for the team. I'm going to discuss a model that was applied to one of our tasks when Kestrels undertook the 30-hour challenge, this being the comfort zone model. Brown 2008 describes the model as often as being presented to participants prior to activities with a highly perceived sense of risk and challenge which arises strong emotional and physical responses to novel tasks, such as rope courses or rock climbing, or for Kestrels, the tunnels. Students are encouraged to think about the stretching themselves by moving outside their comfort zone to expand their perceived limits. Before I expand on this, please see on the screen the model itself. During stage 1 of the challenge, the group were faced with a task involving tunnels, which meant no light in confined spaces, this being a high fear of mine. At this point, I became very indecisive to whether or not I should do the challenge. However, being a team worker, I still had in mind that if I didn't do it, it would affect the team's results. The stretch learning zone applies to this task. It was where leadership came into play by each individual. Every member supported myself and others that struggled with this. They worked as a team and led each other to the end successfully. They did this through clear and calm communication. By doing this, it helped towards the success, as one of our main senses had been taken away from us, vision. This we can relate to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This theory can be applied as it took members out of their comfort zone, which caused panic, fear, and made those such as Katie and myself stretch out of our comfort zone, this illustrating a high level of panic, whereas those who felt much more comfortable in this situation, they faced a lower level of discomfort and therefore supported others through the use of encouragement, speech, and positive support to make those facing their fear feel much more at ease. Brown states that the comfort zone model is widespread within adventure education literature. It is based on the belief that when an individual is placed in a stressful situation, he or she will respond by overcoming their fear and therefore grow as an individual. On approach to the end of tunnels, I personally began to feel like I had overcome a fear and that by pushing myself was a great achievement. However, without the support from my team, I don't think I would have done this, this showing a clear factor in how important it is to have group encouragement and motivation. At the start of this experience, I was in my comfort zone, but then faced this challenge and was forced into feeling very uncomfortable, unfamiliar, worried and suffocated, which Brown states as the groan zone. By overcoming these feelings of self-doubt and panic, Brown claims it pushed oneself into the growth zone, which is also known as the learning zone. Overall, by doing this task, then applying the theory, it becomes very relatable and correct in the emotions, mentality and physicality that I faced in this task.
Hi, I'm Abby, and I was the chair and shaper in the Belbin team roles. As a chair, I helped guide the team towards their objectives. This was most apparent during Saturday morning's challenges, where I read out the brief and had a vision on how to complete each activity. As a shaper, I provided the team with energy. This was apparent throughout the whole of the 30-hour challenge, where I would remind each team member of how much we have completed so far, how little was left, and most importantly sang. At the beginning of the 30-hour challenge, the Kestrels used The Learning Cycle by Kolb, 1984. Kolb states that in order for teams to complete each activity correctly, they should experience, observe, evaluate, and then plan. Kestrels used this learning cycle in many activities, including Too Many Cooks and the electric fence. In Too Many Cooks, the group didn't read the brief and instead just jumped straight into the experience. Halfway through, they then realised that their idea was not going to work because the frame was getting bigger and the planks were no longer going to fit horizontally. The group then had to regroup, rethink, and come up with a new solution. Luckily, they came up with one in enough time and were awarded the maximum points available. However, in the electric fence challenge, they didn't read the brief again and instead jumped straight into the activity. This led to the Kestrels being deducted 100 points for using an illegal move. Both of these experiences made the Kestrels learn that although Kolb states you should experience, observe, evaluate and then plan, it does not work for the 30-hour challenge because each activity had a time frame and there were points to be awarded. Throughout the rest of the 30-hour challenge, the Kestrels then decided to plan on each activity before experiencing, then observe their actions, and then evaluated. This led to the Kestrels coming third in the competition.
Hi, my name is Amy. According to Belbin Profiles, the primary role within a team is a shaper, which I agree with, as I was a sociable team member throughout the challenge, and I encouraged and brought energy to our team while others were struggling. My secondary role was a finisher, where my attributes include being over-anxious and a deadline meter. During our night challenge, we had to complete a range of tasks. We can associate the theory that Bruce Tuckman introduced in 1965, which is the 4 stages of team development. The theory explains the team's development throughout the task and the behaviour of our team, evolving from a forming immature team to a mature performing team. The 4 stages include forming, storming, norming and performing. We can link the first stage, forming, to the beginning of our night challenge, and our walk to the stores, as we were establishing relationships. However, there was a low involvement in the planning, and as a team we were unclear on our objectives. The feelings and weaknesses of the team were covered up, and we had a high dependence on our current leader for guidance and direction. Our team got cosy at this stage, and because none of our team were raising their feelings about how tired and worn out we were feeling, we just continued to follow the leader. According to Tuckman, 1965, the cosy route isn't always highlighted, although it is where the team goes if they lack the ability to develop and the team does not learn from their previous mistakes. We stopped walking and personal feelings were raised, opinions were debated and we were conflicting with each other. We reached the storming stage of the model here as we become distracted by emotional issues such as tiredness. However, although there are 4 stages of Tuckman's stages of the team development model, we believe our team did not reach the norming and performing stage. We didn't establish roles and responsibilities while on the night challenge, and we also didn't have a sound understanding about our objectives of the task. This resulted in tasks being missed on the way to find our stores. Tuckman's stages of team development is an appropriate model to associate with our night challenge because it relates to the individuals within our teams and establishes how our team needed to change in order to develop and perform.
Hi, my name's Katie, and in the Belbin team profiles I have been identified as an organiser and a resource investigator. As an organiser, the profile suggests I can translate plans into manageable tasks and be methodical and practical. My secondary role was a resource investigator. This suggests I have a relaxed and optimistic attitude towards tasks. However, the negative element suggests I would be lazy and complacent and often need a crisis to motivate me. Situational leadership is a theory developed by Paul Hersey and Ken Blanchard in 1969. It suggests that there is no single best way to lead, and that effective leaders adapt their leadership style depending on the individuals, the group, and the tasks that need to be completed. The theory identifies 4 behaviours: telling, selling, delegating, and participating. In stage 2 of the 30-hour challenge, it was evident that situational leadership was occurring. This was in a point where the team was most stretched, with no sleep and minimal food. We were faced with our first task of the evening, which involved selecting the appropriate equipment to untangle a cylinder hanging from a tree. The idea was to collect the contents of the box without it touching the tree or ground. Jacob was designated team leader and began delegating roles to individuals. As the task developed, Jacob clearly communicated to all members, and in return, each member showed support through suggestion or improvements to help achieve the task. This suggests the team was in the selling stage, with two-way communication being used. Situational theory suggests that there isn't one style of leadership that can be used for every task, and that a leader should adapt their style to the situation and setting of the task. In this case, the leader needed to take into consideration the state and mindset of the group. They needed to consider previous challenges and the lack of basic needs such as sleep and food. Jacob, who was also in the same situation, could relate to each member and so resolved to using a softer approach. Jacob successfully achieved this by allowing all members to have some level of involvement, ensuring there was effective communication and emotional support for one another. This was proven in the successful completion of the task.
Hi, I'm Beth.
and the Belbin Profiles theory suggested I am a team worker. A team worker is sympathetic and understanding, which I think relates to my personality. An example of when my team worker skills came into play was when performing the tunnels activity. I helped certain members of the group which were not confident within the task. I gave them reassurance and guidance throughout the whole process. This helped all team members complete this task.
I am going to discuss transformational and transactional leadership in regards to our team, the Kestrels, throughout the 30-hour challenge. According to Lucia 2011, transformational leadership is a leadership that brings about continuous learning, innovation and change. On the other hand, transactional leadership is a leadership based on exchange in the means of rewards. Therefore, transformational leadership is long-term and has vision, whereas transactional leadership is short-term and is revolved around objectives. Winkler 2010 suggests that a transactional leader has management by exception, which means the leader only intervenes if standards are not met. This applies to the water rafting activity our team had to endure. Leaders in the group only took lead and mediated when the group found difficulty and were not pulling their weight when rowing the raft, opposed to a transformational leader which, based 1990, indicates can inspire their team through communicating high expectations from the start to motivate them throughout the whole process. In the morning activities, there were different leaders depending on the nature of the activity. Each leader gave individual consideration to group members by means of pointing out team members' strengths and using them to help accomplish tasks. Based on Avolio 1990 suggests this is an act of a transformational leader, and this individual consideration results in an overall increase of motivation from the team. According to Avolio 2011, leaders can balance transactional and transformational leadership across time. This relates to our team as leaders switch back and forth from transactional leader to a transformational leader. On many occasions, when brainstorming and preparing for an activity throughout the 30-hour challenge, the group was indecisive on a strategy to undertake. Base 1990 states this is an attribute of a transactional leader. Therefore, largely, the Kestrels performed transactional leadership throughout the 30-hour challenge.